There we go. Perfect. And joining us now is Sal Capaccio. He's a radio personality for WGR 550 in Buffalo, and he's also a sideline reporter for the Bills. Sal, how are you doing?
Pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me on. I love talking football.
Absolutely, and you've been a guest for us numerous times before. We appreciate your time every time you are available. It's interesting, now that we have gone through the free agency period a little bit, we were looking at the signings and we thought, hey, let's get Sal on here, because one of the, for a while, almost the only signing the Titans had was DeNoris, a safety from the Bills, and that kind of begs the question, actually, considering that we've signed some Bills in recent years, why do the Titans keep signing so many former Bills?
It's kind of funny, isn't it? George Wilson went down there a couple of years ago. I know T.J. Graham, I think, had a cup of coffee there, and then he went to the Jets. And then, of course, Andy Levitre was the big signing for a free agent guard. And then this year, DeNoris Searcy. I don't know the answer to that. It's kind of funny here in Buffalo. We've taken some leftovers from the New England Patriots over the last several years. And then this year, it seems like a couple former Bills are either going to or working out for the Patriots. So that's kind of reversed its course. So maybe we'll take some Titans a little bit later down the road, because that's the way it seems to go. I don't know. I think that when you're in the same conference and you get to know some of the players, I guess it makes it easier for that management and staff to know a little bit more about the player when they become available. And maybe that's a little bit of the reason, but it's not even in a division team. It's not even really a team that plays each other that often, to be honest with you, although they will be playing this year down in Tennessee, so that should be interesting. I don't know the answer, but I do find it quite odd, like you do.
And speaking of the most recent guy that joined the Titans, Searcy, obviously you have a relationship with him. He was one of your co-hosts on one of your shows, you said. So what type of player did the Titans get with Searcy?
Okay, yeah, he was actually, DeNoris hosted our TV show with me, the co-host of the show, right. And it's me and a co-host, and really it's kind of funny. The running joke is every time I have a co-host, they wind up leaving the Bills through free agency because a few years ago it was Donald Jones, a wide receiver who the Bills cut, and he's out of football now. And then for a couple of years it was Arthur Moats, who then wound up signing with the Steelers last year, and now he just signed a nice contract with the Steelers to stay. And then it was DeNoris Searcy we got, and DeNoris has now left the Tennessee Titans. So if you want to stay in Buffalo, don't have Sal Capaccio as your TV co-host. I guess that's it. The other thing is, just so everybody in Tennessee knows, I know that it's easy to say Searcy. I always do. He prefers Searcy. So
Searcy.
There you go.
Searcy.
Yeah, Searcy. Just so you know that if you want to know the correct way to say it, and it's easy to say Searcy the way it's spelled, but he says it's Searcy. So just so everybody who's listening knows how to say that. Here's the deal with DeNoris. He's a really versatile player. He can play in the box. He can play back as a free safety. The Bills really did not employ a defense over the last couple of years, either under Jim Schwartz or Mike Pettin, that relied on one free and one strong. They basically allowed guys to play both. The Bills had Aaron Williams and DeNoris Searcy basically as their starting safeties last year. They had Aaron Williams and Jarris Byrd the year before that. DeNoris was the guy that filled in for Jarris when he wound up leaving to the Saints. And even through talking personally with DeNoris and getting to know him, I've asked him about this, about the safety position and how they do it. And it's really interesting, his response. He said when the play starts, basically, they don't even know if they're going to line up as a free or a strong. Basically, it's up to Aaron to kind of set them and go, you go here, I go there. So they don't have defined roles, and that just shows you what kind of a safety he can be. He can come down and play against the run. He can stay back and play against the pass. I would tell you, I think he is a better box safety than he's a free safety. If you're looking for someone to come up, support the run, and help out in that area, I think that's more of his strength. However, he did have 3 interceptions last year, 2 in one game against the Cleveland Browns, so he's definitely a guy that can get to the ball. He's extremely versatile. And, he's still young, guys. I mean, he's 26 years old. He's just entering the prime. He just turned 26 at the end of last season. So you're getting a good player there, I think, that is going to stay around for a while.
And that interchangeable safety concept, that's something Titans fans are familiar with whenever Schwartz was here. Well, the same type of deal he had here.
Yeah, and it really worked out for the Buffalo Bills, obviously, because, they're a team that over the last couple of years really has gotten after the quarterback with Mario Williams and Jerry Hughes and Marcel Darius and Kyle Williams up front. So they allow the guys in the back end to kind of do some different things so they don't have to cover guys for so long anyway because it's such a good pass rush. And I think that really helped out guys like DeNoris and guys like Aaron Williams. DeNoris is a really smart player. He's been around football a long time. He went to North Carolina. He's a heady guy who I think you could put him in as a captain of a defense. You could call a defense. I think he's going to bring a lot of intelligence and smarts to Tennessee. And we're sorry to lose him here in Buffalo, but that's how free agency works. And I'll tell you, the Bills would like to have kept DeNoris. The reason why they didn't was because GM Doug Whaley came right out basically at the start of free agency and said, look, we just tied up a lot of money in Aaron Williams to re-up him last year, and it's just the kind of position that you can't spend all that kind of money on for two guys. So, it was a choice. Do we keep Aaron Williams when he came up a couple of years ago, or wait till DeNoris comes up? And they kept Aaron Williams, and he's a really good player too. So I think they made the right choice. And you know what, guys? For DeNoris, it turned out great. I'm so happy for him. He's making over $6 million a year after making pretty much peanuts on his rookie deal.
What do you think of the money he signed for? I mean, I recognize the Bills may not have had the money available, and as you're team building, you have to make those tough choices sometimes. But he's a guy who he started getting more playing time last year, and really seems to be coming on, as you said. You couldn't maybe afford him as the Bills, but then he signs with the Titans. You're looking at that money. How does it stack up to the type of player you think he is?
I think he was overpaid a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I think that's what happens in free agency. What are we looking at? 4 years, almost $24 million, right. $7 million guaranteed is what I'm looking at. I think that's what it is. His salary escalates as he goes on in the Titans contract. He's only to count down there in Tennessee for $2.5 million this year, then $5 million, then it goes up after that. So if he plays his way into keeping around that contract, then hey, you're getting a good player, and he's going to be counting, some good money, but in order for him to justify that money, they'll keep him around. I think the way that the Titans structured it was very smart, which is he's not going to be really expensive the first couple of years here, only $7 million or so over the first 2 years, and if he plays up to expectations, great, then they keep him around and they feel good about the money they're going to give him on the back end. If he doesn't play that well, I think they can get out of it, and they're probably only on the cap for a few $1 million after that. So I don't think it's that bad of a deal from that standpoint, but I do think they overpaid for the kind of player he is. But here's the reason. There weren't many safeties on the market this year, and especially versatile safeties. I think that's really what he brings to what you want in any defense right now in the NFL, the way tight ends are being used, the way the game has evolved into such a passing game, and you have to be able to do so many different things and cover so many different types of players, whether it's outside or the slot, and then come down in the box. So I think they overpaid, but look, here in Buffalo, they're overpaying for Charles Clay by a lot to try and get him into an offer sheet, but the only way they can get him is to overpay. That's the way free agency works. It happens every year, and I don't begrudge teams for doing that. If that's the guy you want, then you have to overpay. It's kind of like buying a house, I think, guys. If it's listed at $150 and you really, really want it, you might have to pay $175 and just overpay a little bit.
Especially when there are more bidders out there. And going into this, you kind of heard right as free agency was about to open that this deal had happened. And then you heard later on that there were other teams that were also in on it. You kind of wondered if that was this just being put out there to kind of cover the whole legal tampering thing or what it was. But are you surprised that he signed so quickly?
No, I'm not. I think that DeNoris was the kind of guy that he knew kind of the writing was on the wall in Buffalo. I think he would have loved to have come back, but he understood the situation. So I think what happened there was, to me, I'm not saying there was tampering and everything like that, but I'm sure his agent was understanding the marketplace for him, and they didn't, whereas opposed to a guy like Jerry Hughes who came back to Buffalo and they were working on bringing him back, I don't think that ever really was an option for DeNoris. So his agent kind of got a jump start and a head start on feeling out the marketplace. So right away when free agency opens, those guys who sign in the first few days are probably going to get the biggest deals. It was probably the smartest move for him. If you wait in free agency and you wait on the back end, I'll use a guy like C.J. Spiller here in Buffalo. He waited a good week before he signed, and the money in the market kind of dried up a little bit, so he didn't make as much as he thought he would down in New Orleans. Probably could have stayed in Buffalo for the same money. So I think DeNoris made a good play. I think his agent did something very smart by signing that deal as quickly as they did.
Yeah, it's kind of been the Titans' MO a little bit lately too. It seems like as though they specifically identify players, and then they overpay a little bit, but they get them signed really quickly. So, yeah, it was interesting that he did that. But then I also think there's got to be, as you're coming up on free agency, you do worry about the money drying up. But then there's also just something to be said for the certainty of knowing I've signed my deal, it's done.
There is, and I'll also say this because I know DeNoris and his family so well. He has a young daughter just born a few months ago.
Hmm.
Him and his wife, they've been married for a couple of years. She's a great, awesome. I'll tell you about her in a second. But I think what happens is, to speak to your point, Jamal, is when you have a family to take care of, and you're not just this single guy who's 26 and looking for, the best deal. Maybe, you're probably looking for the right deal to make sure that you can secure your family. And when that one comes along right away, I don't think you want to second guess yourself. I think DeNoris, he's a very, very good family man. I think he wants to take care of his family for the rest of his life, and now he's going to be able to. And I think this was a smart call for him to do that. But not his wife. So he has his wife. Her name is Kiki. And that's her nickname, Kiki Searcy, and Cersei. See, I do it too. And she is I get this. She is a world-class sprinter.
Wow.
She and she's very competitive, and she actually literally challenged all the Buffalo Bills to a race. That's the kind of person she is.
Did anyone race her? And how did it go?
While she was pregnant, by the way. She's amazing. She's from the Houston area. I actually thought DeNoris was going to sign with the Texans out of free agency. They were interested, and that is his wife's hometown, and she still has family down there. I really thought that he was going to sign with the Houston Texans. He didn't. Obviously, Tennessee really wanted him to come in with a nice offer. There were a few teams. I think the Raiders and the Chargers were the other teams interested, all AFC teams. But it surprised me that he didn't go to Houston because his wife still does have family there. If you remember the big snowstorm we had, 6 feet in Buffalo over 3 days, had to have the game moved and all that. Yeah. Well, while that was going on, she just happened to be down in Houston, and she didn't even come home. DeNoris was home by himself for 4 days. He was telling me the story how he's just stay there. You can't even come here, and she's down in Houston, he's there. So I guess it's just a little anecdote to show you that they are Southern people because she lives there. But they met at North Carolina. That's where she ran track. She was a world-class sprinter at North Carolina. I believe she went to Olympic trials and things like that. And she's an incredible athlete. And the game that he had 2 interceptions against Cleveland, it was an amazing game. If you get a chance, go on NFL Rewind. The guy played literally the game of his life. It was incredible. He picked off Brian Hoyer a couple of times, Johnny Manziel, and then he almost picked one off on Johnny Manziel when he came in. So I asked him on the TV show, man, I said, your wife, what did she say when you came home after that incredible performance? You had 2 interceptions. And he looked at me and he says, she said I should have had 3. So that's the kind of competitive person that Kiki Searcy is with DeNoris Searcy, and that's what kind of family they are. And I think that they're going to be a great addition to Nashville.
Interesting. Do you have is there a comparable that you would make for DeNoris?
Oh, that's a great question. Geez, off the top of my head, versatile safety these days in the NFL. I'd have to go through and think about that. I do actually. I'll tell you. I think he's a lot like Jarris Byrd, who played in Buffalo. And Jarris Byrd was a Pro Bowler. I think Jarris is more of a ball hawk, and DeNoris is more of a box guy. But I think it's that kind of versatility that really was on display here in Buffalo. And here's the thing: he got better every year, and he got better as his last season went on. I think by the end of the year, there were a lot of people. The Bills had some free agents. They had Jerry Hughes, C.J. Spiller, Brandon Spikes, and DeNoris Searcy. Those were the big 4 names, and almost everybody said Jerry Hughes got to be number 1. But I got to tell you, by the end of the season, many, many Bills fans said DeNoris Searcy was the number 2 guy they wanted back on this team out of those 4 big free agents, ahead of C.J. and Brandon Spikes.
Yeah, young guy, too. You guys want to be 26 when the season starts.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think that's a great thing as well. He did have a hamstring injury at the end of last year, just so you know. He did miss a couple of games. He came out of the game. We were in Denver. He came out of the game early in that one with a hamstring injury. Told me throughout the week when I talked to him he thought he'd be okay. They played Green Bay the next week, Aaron Rodgers at home, and he didn't play. And, I think that it was really unfortunate for DeNoris in that game because they put a street free agent in his place. Bakari Rambo was his name. Actually, Duke Williams started the game. Duke Williams is going to take over for him this year. So what happened was in that Green Bay game, so DeNoris doesn't play. Duke Williams plays in the game, and he gets hurt. So Bakari Rambo comes in. Here's a kid that was just signed 2 weeks ago off the street. He winds up picking off Aaron. Yeah, he wound up picking off Aaron Rodgers twice. And I think that I think that kind of hurt DeNoris, you know what I mean? Not personally, but meaning stature-wise, as far as the team saying, well, maybe in our system we don't need to pay a guy like DeNoris Searcy because look what this street free agent is doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and when you get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, that does make it easier on the secondary.
That's right, and they had a great game. They rattled Aaron Rodgers. He had one of the worst games of his career that day here in Buffalo, and the Bills wound up beating the Green Bay Packers here at home. But Denoris wasn't on the field for that game, and I know he wanted to be, and then he came back after that and finished out the season. But he did have a slight hamstring injury, and like I think also being who his wife is, going through sprinting and the kind of athlete she is at the level she's been at, I think that actually helped him recover from his injury, because when you got a person like that at home that's been through that kind of stuff, you can go home and they kind of know how to take care of the injury even away from the facility.
Has the snow melted yet?
Yes, but the new round hasn't. Guys, we've had the worst winter ever. Like I mean, I grew up here. We've had some bad winters here, but the last few, they haven't been that bad. But this year was just awful. It's ridiculous. And finally, it's just starting to get a little bit warmer, but even then, it's still below normal. But yeah, still some snow on the ground. I think there will be until Easter.
Yeah, I was actually enjoying quite a bit looking at all the tunnels through the snow, the different things like that. Kind of missed it in Wisconsin here. We didn't get quite as much snow. But, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and so this year the Bills are playing at Tennessee, so that should be interesting because you're going to have the reunion. Andy Vitry and George Wilson. Is George Wilson even still on the team?
Yes, actually, I believe he is.
All right, so let's see. There you go.
Yeah, it's interesting because safeties are such a difficult position to even find good players, and that's why I think it's interesting. You've got two safeties recently coming over from the Bills. The Bills are almost like bleeding safeties. It's very difficult to do in today's NFL.
It is. It's kind of weird. They've done a good job at drafting safeties. Like I said, Jarris Byrd was a Pro Bowler, and he winds up leaving free agency and signing with the Saints for a massive deal, and that's turned out to be a bad deal for them. He was hurt and missed almost all of last year. He's already had to restructure his deal, and then the Bills got better without him, with Denoris there. I mean, the Bills were a better defense this year than they were last year, in 14 than they were in 13, and that was with Denoris instead of Aaron Williams. And now, Duke Williams, he came in for Denoris at times, and he looked pretty good. He's going to be a pretty good player, I think. So you're right. And then George Wilson, funny thing about George Wilson, he's a converted wide receiver. He came in the NFL as a wide receiver. He went to Arkansas. If you remember back in the original Wildcat days when that came on the scene with Darren McFadden at Arkansas, George Wilson was a wide receiver on that team.
It's always amazing when a player can make that transition, because it's one thing to be a good enough athlete to succeed in the NFL, but then to succeed at two very different disciplines is almost more impressive than being elite at a single position, in my mind.
I totally agree, and I'll say that especially because you have two things. Your ego is so. Guys have an ego. Like, what do you mean they want me to switch positions? How many guys they say if you want to play in the NFL, you can't play quarterback. You got to play running back or receiver. To eat that and say, okay, I'll be willing to do that, I think is very special. But especially those two positions, because what's the old joke? Why do guys play defensive back? Because they can't catch the ball, right? I mean,
hands of stone.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But George could, and he what happened there a few years ago, when he was in Buffalo and first starting out, he was a wide receiver. He was going to get cut, and they went to him and they said, look, we're very thin at DB. We love the way you play special teams. We love the effort you give. We think you could stick around at least and hang around the roster if you're willing. But if you want to be a wide receiver, we're gonna have to let you go. And to George's credit, he sucked up his pride, and he did that, and it turned out nice for him, because I don't think many people thought he'd have a prolonged NFL career. But here he is, years later, he's still sticking around. And you guys know that he's in a music video for Mary J. Blige, right?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, it is called Hood Love, so look it up. George Wilson is in the Mary J. Blige video called Hood Love. He's actually like the star of the video. He plays either Mary J's boyfriend or the other girl's boyfriend, but basically that's what he does. He's this good-looking dude, and he's got a lot of things going on. He's some sort of modeling he does, and he got a gig in this Mary J. Blige video, so he's on the right track, I think, after football too.
That's fascinating to me. I was trying to think if I know of anyone else that has that sort of wide range, but when people can succeed at things like that, it just blows my mind. I like to think that I'm a successful person, but nothing like that, and not in multiple things.
Yeah, and Andy Levitre down there. I know he had what's the deal with him? Did he have back injury last year? He had some
Yeah.
injuries.
What hasn't he been injured with? It's interesting. I think he's had knee surgery each year leading up to this year.
Yeah,
And I don't think he has had it again this year. He's an interesting dilemma for the Titans because they don't really have another player there, and it's not like he's playing for peanuts. But the question is, how much of it is injury related? And then you can always hope, you can always make an argument that a player is not going to be injured again. I really don't know if he will ever stay healthy.
Well, I'll tell you this. Andy was a second-round pick in Buffalo. He started his rookie year, and he started, I think, every single game for 4 years for the Bills. He started, 64 total games. He was always healthy, and he was a good player. He wasn't a great guard, but he was a good guard. I think he was overpaid, but again, that's what happens in free agency. The Bills could have kept him the summer before that for a much less deal, but they never negotiated, and that was on them. I think they'd like to have kept him. But what I'll tell you is, I was told by people who know these kinds of things that the Bills knew he had possibility to have some injuries down the road because they're medical specialists. They check these guys out all the time, especially when they're becoming free agents towards the end of their contract, blah, blah, blah. And I guess the Bills medical personnel said, look, we're concerned that down the road he's going to have some injuries, and that's why they elected him to go. And sure enough, it wound up happening pretty quickly once he went to Tennessee.
That's really interesting because one of the things that when that signing was made, you kind of heard those rumors on some Bills message boards, and people
Right.
kind of questioned it because of that. And I mean, at the time, do you think that was a bad signing at the time, or do you think it surprised you with how it's turned out?
No, good signing for the player, bad signing for the money. I think even today, let me put it this way: the Bills' weakest position on the field right now is guard. Like they have horrible guard play they had last year. That's why they went out and signed Richie freaking Incognito. All right, I mean that's crazy, right? So they had horrible guard play last year. So even though they had horrible guard play, I'm telling you that not one Bills fan would tell you they would be willing to give Andy Levitre the same money that Tennessee gave him.
And just you brought up Incognito, and with Hardy signing today, what are your thoughts on that? Thoughts of bringing in guys with these character concerns, and even if you protect yourself with the way the Cowboys did his Hardy contract.
Well, and then, of course, I don't know if you guys saw, but the Bills not only signed Incognito, they brought in Percy Harvin and signed him to a one-year deal.
Yeah.
I did see that.
Yeah, pretty amazing. They're loading up, but, I think in Buffalo it's a little different. There's a lot of pressure on, new ownership now, 15 years and no playoffs. They feel that they have the right roster now to actually go on to the playoffs, even though they don't have the quarterback. So that's why they're doing these things. I think it really depends on the environment and the person added together and who they are and what their expectations are and where they are in their life after everything that happened. And what I mean is, I'm not a fan of Richie Incognito. I think what he did is awful. It's horrible. But I'm also a fan of giving people second chances in this world.
Right.
I mean, I just think that, it's foolish to take people's livelihoods away because they did something stupid or, we're not talking about someone who murdered somebody here. With Richie I'm talking about. So I'm okay with giving him a second chance, but that second chance has to be predicated upon you at one time to make sure that you're going to do it right. And if you screw up, then we're getting rid of you. That's it. We
Right.
can't have that. And I'll also say this. I think Rex Ryan is one of the only coaches who really can bring a guy like that into a locker room and make him feel wanted and accepted right away. And, Rex is going to have a good locker room. That's good. Just from you guys have seen him on TV the way he is. And I can tell you, I've spent some time one-on-one with him. What you see is what you get. I thought it might have been a shtick. It might have been just, window dressing. It is not. That man is, everything you see on TV is exactly who he is. He's a really, really down-to-earth guy, but he's all about camaraderie and having fun and family and a great atmosphere and being positive. And I think that's something that a guy like Richie Incognito needs, and I think he'll be accepted by his teammates. But look, I think that leash should be short. If he screws up, then you need to get rid of him. And that's as simple as that because the team is far more important. Now, as far as Greg Hardy, boy, what he did, you watch that outside the lines and on what he did, and that is just, I don't know. I would really be struggling today if Greg Hardy was signed by the Buffalo Bills. It would be a hard thing for me to swallow. But that said, I think that people do deserve second chances in life, and I know what he did is absolutely awful. But you know what? The law, for whatever reason, did not put him in jail, and the man has a right to make a living. And if the Dallas Cowboys think he can help them and they can help him, then they have the right to do that, so I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And to update anyone who's listening and doesn't understand what happened, Hardy's basically found guilty. He requested a jury trial on appeal. In the meantime, there was a civil suit with the woman who accused him. Apparently, there's some sort of financial agreement, and so she didn't show up, and so the charges were dropped. The NFL now is actually suing to get that information so they can make their decision based on the facts instead of just based on the ruling. And going and talking, kind of the biggest talk of free agency or the offseason so far, it seems, was that LaShawn McCoy trade. I kind of want to get your perspective from a Bills guy on what you think about losing Alonzo.
Well, there's two parts of it, obviously. I think it's a win-win for both teams, and here's why. The Bills, obviously, they knew C.J. Spiller was, they offered C.J. Spiller a contract. He said no. They knew they were going to move on from C.J. Spiller. They also wanted somebody who could be a little bit more of a downhill guy. C.J., he's more of a guy that likes to bounce it to the outside and things like that. And, of course, LaShawn does too sometimes, but I think, you don't get the rushing yards he has without going downhill once in a while. You know what I mean? So I think that's why they wanted him. But that said, when you look at it from a Philly perspective, Kiko Alonso is like, oh my God, we get this really young stud linebacker. We really need to do that. Our defense isn't that good. From a Bills perspective, think about this. He didn't play last year, and they were the fourth-ranked defense in the league. I mean, how much better can Kiko Alonso make the already maybe top defense in the league? When you combine fourth-ranked last year, add Rex Ryan, you're not losing anybody except for Denoris Searcy. Really, they're literally. Denoris is the only starter on the entire defense that's not coming back next year, and they were ranked fourth in the league, and they added Rex Ryan as a coach.
Yeah, I was going to say they added Rex Ryan.
So
and Rex, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I love Kiko. Believe me, the guy's a stud. He's a really good player. And maybe 5 years from now, I'm going to be like, man, damn, I can't believe the Bills traded that guy. But for right now, for a team that hasn't been in the playoffs for 15 years, guys, the last time we were there was against the Tennessee Titans on home run throwback, right? And for a team that's like that, I mean, you're trying to get to the playoffs now, so you go out and you do whatever you have. So you go and you get LaShawn McCoy, you get Percy Harvin, you get Charles Clay, there's Richie Incognito. That's what they're doing. They're loading up to try and make the playoffs this year, because getting to the playoffs this year for this team literally would be almost like getting to a Super Bowl. That's how long it's been. That's how thirsty everyone is for this to happen.
Well, and sort of tagging on to one of the things you said before, Rex Ryan knows a thing or two about making mistakes. Isn't he the guy that has a tattoo in a Sanchez jersey on his,
He got that covered up, I think.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah,
he made it blue. He made it a blue jersey, I think, is what he did. It's not Sanchez anymore, but it's kind of funny. The I think if I remember now, it would be Jordan Gay of the Bills. That's who he would have of the jersey now. So that's instead of Mark Sanchez, right? So there he is the kickoff specialist. So there you go.
Interesting. Well, so you are Coach Sal Sal Sports on Twitter, correct?
Yeah, Sal Sports on Twitter.
Sal Sports on Twitter. Where else can people find you?
Well, I am on every Saturday on WGR Sports Radio 550 in Buffalo on the air. You can hear me 11 to 2, and we have an app online, WGR, in the App Store. So, go find that. But there's also a Sal Sports Facebook page. I got a lot going on. One of the things I just was fortunate enough to start doing over the last this past basketball season, I am the play-by-play announcer on ESPN3 for all the University at Buffalo women's basketball games. They're going to the women's NIT. So working with ESPN has been great for the last 6 months, and there's just a lot of great things going on. I'm really excited and really happy to do what I'm doing and feel incredibly fortunate as someone who grew up a season ticket holder of the Buffalo Bills to be in the position I'm in.
Absolutely. Early prediction. And based on the Titans coming off a 2-win season, I feel like I would know your answer. But early prediction on the Titans game this year.
I don't think the Titans are quite the roster of the Bills right now, and I think that they have. If there's one team in this league that might have a worse quarterback situation than the Bills, it might be the Tennessee Titans, right? The Bills, the Titans, and the Jets might be the top three. But I don't see Tennessee beating Buffalo, but it is down there, and the Bills have struggled, down there in recent memory. Just let's hope the owner doesn't give the Bills the finger this time when they go down there.
Well, it actually might be interesting because it's a new owner, so
for both teams too.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the ownership in Tennessee is an interesting thing for fans right now too, but that's another subject. Sal, we really appreciate you coming on, as always, making yourself available and really giving us the inside information on Norris. When are you going to convince him to come on the podcast? That's what I want to know.
Well, I could text him anytime you guys want and set that up for you. So that would help. So I'll try and do that sometime. Let him settle in Tennessee. I'm sure he's moving and things like that. But sometime this offseason, I will tell you. I'm not trying to name drop or anything. I did text Norris the day that he signed in Tennessee, and I congratulated him, and he was really happy. And he said he loved his time here in Buffalo, but I told him let's meet up when we're down there, and we plan on doing that because I'll be down there with the Bills, obviously. So I can't wait to see him. I'll be down there in Tennessee for the game, whenever that may be, when the schedule comes out, and I look forward to seeing my buddy. In this business, you're not supposed to make friends, but it's hard not to when you have a guy like DeNoris Searcy, and I know I'll always be friendly with him and his wife, and I'll always wish him the best no matter where he is.
Well, that sounds good. Sal, I lost my train of thought. I was going to say I really do appreciate you coming on. It was very much last minute for you this time, and you made yourself available. So thank you once again.
Yeah, no problem. And how's the kid?
Mateo is excellent. He's a joy. He's getting to be 19, 20 months, so he's really starting to talk and communicate now. And as you'll find out in a few short months, it just keeps getting better every day. So it's exciting.
I think Max is trying to say some things. He just can't yet. You know what I mean?
And how old is he again?
He's 15 months.
15 months, yep. He's getting right there. Pretty soon it's just going to start exploding.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, so listen, guys. Let's plan on maybe doing something when the Bills play the Titans, whenever that may be. Keep in contact, and when the two teams are going to play, we'll set something up that week, and I can come on or after the game or whatever.
Absolutely. That sounds like a plan.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, what's Josh? What's your Josh? Right, it was. I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah, Josh.
What's your Twitter? So I'll kind of throw something out there that some love everything.
Yeah, sure. So I run the website Titans Report. So I'm just at Titans Report on Twitter.
Okay, so you're at Titans Report, and then Jamal, I got yours obviously. So yeah, I'm gonna throw something out there tonight and just say, hey, had a good time with you guys, and maybe get some followers or whatever.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Good. Thanks, guys.
All right,
thanks, Sal.
you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye.
That was Coach Sal, Two-Tone Crew Hall of Famer, Coach Sal.
He's almost an honorary host at this point.
Yeah. Wow, Sal's great. I like this guy. Okay, so we'll stop here.
I'll cut out that awkward part where I totally lost